When Silence Breaks: The Untold Stories of Rape Related Pregnancies. I recently had the privilege of interviewing Nicole Best-Smith, a force of nature whose work illuminates one of society's most painful shadows. Nicole isn't just an advocate, she's a revolutionary who has dedicated her life to supporting survivors of sexual violence, particularly those who become pregnant as a result of rape. Her impact extends beyond individual support. She's dismantling systems, challenging deeply rooted stigma, and creating sacred spaces where the most difficult stories can finally be told with dignity and power. What makes Nicole extraordinary isn't just her unwavering commitment to justice, but her profound understanding that healing requires both truth telling and tenderness. Have you ever noticed how certain topics make a room go quiet? That sudden, palpable shift in energy when someone mentions sexual violence? That silence isn't accidental, it's cultivated, maintained, protected. It serves a purpose: to keep uncomfortable truths at a safe distance. But silence has consequences, devastating ones. Each year, thousands of women become pregnant as a result of rape. Thousands. Not a few isolated cases that make headlines, not rare exceptions. Thousands of women whose bodies become battlegrounds twice over, first in violence, then in the deeply personal aftermath of an unwanted pregnancy. This isn't just a statistic, it's a reality that fundamentally alters lives. And yet, we rarely hear these stories. We rarely make space for them. We rarely acknowledge the women navigating this impossible terrain, often alone, often in silence, often without the resources they desperately need. Nicole Best-Smith refused to let that silence stand. And today, I'm refusing to. When I asked Nicole what she most wanted people to understand about her work, three themes emerged with striking clarity: the stark reality of rape related pregnancies, the systemic barriers survivors face, and the transformative power of breaking silence. Let's start with reality. The numbers are staggering. Research shows that women who become pregnant through rape face dramatically elevated risks. Depression rates 3 times higher than the general population, PTSD 6 times higher, substance abuse 13 to 26 times higher, suicidal thoughts 4 times higher. Behind each of these statistics is a person, a life interrupted, a woman facing impossible choices with inadequate support, a human being whose trauma is compounded by a society that would rather look away than look closely at her pain. And that brings us to the second theme Nicole emphasized: systemic barriers. In June 2025, Nigeria's federal high court made a landmark ruling affirming that unplanned pregnancies resulting from rape violate women's fundamental rights to physical and mental health. This might sound obvious, but the reality is that for years, Nigerian women faced not only the trauma of sexual violence, but also dangerous, often deadly consequences when seeking to terminate resulting pregnancies. For decades, Nigerian women have been caught in an impossible bind, criminalized if they sought to end pregnancies resulting from violence, stigmatized if they carried them to term. Many resorted to unsafe procedures, suffering preventable injuries or death. The silence around their suffering was deafening. Then the Reproductive Justice Initiative Foundation stepped in. They petitioned for judicial recognition of safe abortion as a right for survivors. And against tremendous odds, they won. For the first time, a superior court recognized these pregnancies as violations of fundamental rights, expanding protections nationwide and strengthening advocacy efforts across Africa. This victory matters. It matters because systems, legal, medical, social, often compound trauma rather than alleviating it. We see this playing out dramatically in the United States. After Roe v. Wade was overturned, 14 states banned abortion with few or no exceptions, even for rape victims. Over 500,000 rapes were reported in these states within 2 years. More than 64,000 resulted in pregnancy. Let that sink in. 64,000 women already traumatized by sexual violence, forced to navigate pregnancy and childbirth against their will or risk their lives seeking unsafe alternatives. Even in states with rape exceptions, the reality is grim. Doctors, fearing prosecution, often refuse to provide abortions even when legally permitted. The burden of proof falls on survivors, many of whom haven't reported their assaults, many of whom can't prove what happened to them, many of whom are simply trying to survive each day. These barriers disproportionately impact Black women who already face maternal health disparities and who are more likely to live in states with restrictive abortion laws. The intersection of racism, sexism, and reproductive control creates a perfect storm of injustice. But Nicole's work isn't just about documenting injustice, it's about creating pathways through it. It's about supporting survivors wherever they are in their journey. Some specialized clinics now offer integrated counseling and care programs tailored specifically for survivors parenting after assault, addressing both immediate medical needs and long term healing through culturally competent providers. These programs recognize that healing isn't linear, that parenting after rape brings unique challenges, that support must be holistic and ongoing. The data tells us these programs work. When survivors have access to trauma informed care from providers who understand the complex intersection of sexual violence, pregnancy, and parenting, their outcomes improve dramatically. Depression rates decrease, parenting confidence increases, the cycle of trauma begins to break. This brings us to Nicole's third essential point: the power in sharing your story. Speaking out about surviving sexual violence and parenting after rape is an act of profound courage. It challenges stigma, it inspires others to heal, it pushes for change in policy and community attitudes. But here's what Nicole wants you to understand: sharing your story isn't just about helping others, it's about reclaiming your voice. It's about refusing to be defined by what was done to you. It's about stepping into your power as a survivor, not just a victim. For too long, Black women especially have been expected to be strong, to endure, to carry on regardless of what's been done to us or taken from us. We've been taught that survival means silence. That strength means solitude. That softness is a luxury we cannot afford. Nicole challenges that narrative. She reminds us that true strength includes vulnerability, that healing requires community, that softness, the ability to feel, to grieve, to rage, to heal, is not weakness but power. So, what do we do with this knowledge? How do we move from awareness to action? First, take bold action by supporting organizations advocating for survivor centered policies. Donate time, resources, or amplify their messages. Find the organizations in your community doing this work and show up for them consistently, not just when headlines make it convenient. Second, start conversations within your circles about consent culture, the realities faced by those parenting children conceived through assault, and ways we can collectively dismantle shame. These conversations aren't easy, but they're necessary. They create ripples that eventually become waves. Third, if you're a professional leader or entrepreneur, commit publicly and internally in workspaces, churches, family gatherings to creating safe environments where all stories are heard without judgment. This means examining policies, practices, and cultures that might silence survivors or compound their trauma. As we close today, I want to leave you with this. Silence has never protected the vulnerable. Comfort has never created change. And looking away has never made injustice disappear. The stories we've explored today are difficult. They should be. They should disturb our peace, disrupt our assumptions, and demand our attention. Because the 64,000 women who became pregnant through rape in those 14 states, they don't have the luxury of looking away. The Nigerian women fighting for their fundamental rights, they don't have the privilege of changing the channel. Nicole Best-Smith's work reminds us that even in our darkest moments, we are never alone, and that together we can transform silence into action, pain into purpose, and survival into something sacred. So I challenge you, what silence are you maintaining? What conversation are you avoiding? What truth are you waiting to speak? Because when we break silence together, we create space not just for pain, but for possibility, not just for survival, but for justice, not just for endurance, but for transformation. In a world that too often demands our silence, choosing to speak and creating space where others can speak too might be the most radical act of all. The question isn't whether these conversations are difficult, they are. The question is whether we have the courage to have them anyway. For the thousands of survivors whose stories deserve to be heard, for the future we wish to create for ourselves. Because ultimately, the cost of silence is too high, and the power of breaking it together is immeasurable.